Sir, he can't board. He has a seat. He has ID. I'm following orders. The words landed like metal on tile. A sharp antiseptic hum from the terminal's ventilation filled the spaces between them. Overhead lights rifled across a polished floor streaked with the last colors of a November morning sun. Outside the glass, a line of jets slept against a blue, so brittle it might crack. Marcus Bell stood beside his son, Jalen, as if the two of them formed an anchor. Jalen's carry-on sat at his feet, his boarding pass still clutched to the plastic wristband from security. He was 16, hair brushed into neat waves, a sweatshirt pulled close against the draft. His face had the stubborn, hopeful look of someone who had saved for months to surprise his mother with a Thanksgiving visit. The agent, a woman in a crisp uniform, kept her voice low but steady. Her fingers hovered over the terminal screen, the keys clicking like small, impatient raindrops. Passengers shifted, a ripple of soft curiosity and annoyance. Somewhere, a child laughed. Coffee machines hissed. "You're telling me a black teenager in a valid seat can't fly?" Marcus said, and the question was gentler than his chest felt. "We need secondary documentation for unaccompanied minors," she said. "Or a notarized travel consent." Jalen's eyes flicked between them, astonishment making them wide. "But I'm not unaccompanied. I'm with my dad." "Names don't match the reservation," the agent replied. She folded the boarding pass and set it on the counter like a small white flag. Her badge glinted, a polished oval with a number, not a name. Her voice stayed courteous, but the line she drew was absolute. Marcus's jaw tightened. He opened his wallet, unfolded an older photograph of a woman, his ex-wife, holding Jalen when he was small. He offered a phone with text proving the plan. He pushed the envelope of proof as far as he could. Nearby, a toddler dropped a toy airplane. It skittered under a bench, and the sound snapped the moment into sharper focus. The injustice was small and enormous at once. "You can't do this," Marcus said. "We've flown this same route twice this year. I have his birth certificate on my phone." The agent checked the screen again, and then recited a policy line she had been trained to recite. "I'm sorry. I can't let him board without proper parental documentation matching the reservation." A woman with a rolling suitcase stopped mid-step, listening. A man in a business jacket studied his boarding pass, annoyed. A young couple exchanged looks. The terminal's public address system announced a delayed Flight 3 gates down. The soft percussion of shoes became a drumbeat of small witnesses. Jalen's voice came out as if from another room. "Dad, what if Mom's?" He couldn't finish. Marcus heard the tremor that arrived and refused to show. He felt heat rise, not from the vents but from something older. Embarrassment, hot pressure of being judged where the proof should have been simply a family. He thought of his own father, a quiet man from Cleveland who always said, "You show up, son." He looked at the boarding pass again, at the name that matched his, at the passport photo that looked like Jalen's laughing face. At the edge of his sight line, someone laughed softly at a joke on their phone. A woman wiped her eyes with a napkin. The agent pressed a button and the terminal offered a polite chime, as if technology itself were a referee. Marcus lowered his voice. "This is discrimination," he said. The words landed only to the people close enough to listen. Around them, conversations resumed, the world doing what it always did when a single life bumped against an inflexible rule. Then, like a calm breaking a sudden storm, a man came through the security gate. He was in his late 40s, tall and sure, the kind of presence that filled the small room. He wore a navy blazer with captain stripes on the sleeve, 4 embroidered bars that caught the light. He moved with a measured pace, a hand on a worn leather bag that smelled faintly of jet fuel and old paper maps. Heads turned. The terminal seemed to inhale. Jalen recognized him first. He brightened, thinking a relative had arrived early. The agent's polite professional mask tightened almost imperceptibly. Marcus straightened. Relief and 100 other emotions pressed against his ribs. The man with stripes approached with a set of keys at his belt, a pilot's cadence in his step. He looked toward the agent and then at Jalen, taking in the sweat-smudged boarding pass, the phone with a message thread, the father's steady, strained stare. "Is everything all right here?" the man asked, and his voice carried the easy authority of someone used to being obeyed, but not with arrogance, with an expectation that things be done fairly. The terminal's hum pressed in. Somewhere beyond the glass, a plane taxied, its engines a distant thunder. Marcus watched the man's hand brush the captain's stripes again, as if checking their truth. "Sir," the agent said, careful. We require matching documentation for minors. The man in stripes smiled once, a small, tired smile that didn't warm Marcus's chest but made the air change. He reached into his blazer pocket and took out a card, plain, official-looking, then did something no one expected. He tucked it back. He looked Marcus in the eye. "What do you have?" he asked. "Enjoying this? Tap subscribe for tomorrow's story." Marcus Bell stood a step back from the counter, the same way a man might step back from a neighbor's fence when he is not certain whose property line he is crossing. He was 42, broad-shouldered, with laugh lines that had become map-like in recent years. He wore a thrift store peacoat, clean but softened at the elbows. There was a small smudge of grease on one cuff from his job as a diesel mechanic, a badge of practical life, not a fashion statement. Jalen clutched his boarding pass like a promise. The boy was 16, tall for his age, with the same strong jawline as his father. He had been saving part-time wages from a landscaping job, calling his mother in Ohio in whispers about the surprise. The plan was simple: fly out, sit at her kitchen table, and tell her he had earned the trip. Passengers flowed around them. The airport smelled of coffee, disinfectant, and the soft ozone left by passing aircraft. Overhead screens flicked gate numbers. A departure chime rolled for another flight. Marcus felt each sound as if it might tip the moment one way or another. He had grown used to small humiliations. Custody arrangements had left him used to waiting rooms and calendar notes. Paperwork was not new to him. He had printed the itinerary, carried the text with his ex-wife confirming the dates, and even saved the receipt for the plane tickets. He had the money saved for Jalen's surprise and every intention to be a father who showed up. "Sir," the gate agent said again. Her name tag read Maria Collins. She was in her late 20s, her hair pinned back, her tone pitched at professional neutrality. The reservation name must match the ID. "For minors, we need additional consent." Marcus slid his phone across the counter. Messages glowed on the screen, a short thread between him and his ex-wife, Evelyn, clear, plain text. "He'll be there for Thanksgiving. Marcus will bring Jay." He thumbed to the birth certificate scanned and stored in his cloud. He breathed as if his breath might settle the agent's decision. Maria did not dismiss the evidence. She scrolled, she checked, she clicked. Her finger made a practiced, quick sound against the glass of the tablet. Small, efficient percussion. The terminal light caught the curve of her badge and then moved on. "The system flags this is needing manager clearance," she said. "I'm sorry, but I can't override it." Around them, people cleared their throats. A mother gathered a stroller. A businessman shifted his laptop bag. The background became an ambient witness, not hostile, not kind, merely present. Jalen's hands found Marcus's sleeve. "Dad, what are we going to do?" he asked. The words were small. The question was large. Marcus swallowed. He had fought for dignity in quieter places. The mechanic's shop when a customer assumed he could not read a repair manual, the PDA meeting where his voice had been trimmed by polite disbelief. He had learned the currency of steady behavior. Show up, speak cleanly, keep receipts. But policy, as it often does, had teeth that did not always consider the body it bit. He thought of Evelyn, former teacher, patient, firm. They had divorced 2 years ago and agreed on holiday schedules. No one had planned this pause at the gate. "Marcus," a voice said from the ticketing line. It was Elaine, Marcus's sister, a nurse who had come with him to the airport for moral backup. She wore a thin scarf and a face that kept practical warmth. She reached out and squeezed his shoulder, a small anchor. "We'll sort it." He met her eyes and felt steadier. Still, something about the agent's posture made him uneasy. The rigid shoulder that said she had been trained for objections and had the authority of policy behind her. At the edge of the little knot of people, the man in the navy blazer, Captain Aaron Hale, watched with a quiet attention. He carried the air of someone who'd traveled the world and came home to arguments like this one. His captain's stripes caught the light again as he shifted his bag. Marcus noticed the stripes the way one notices a lighthouse when crossing a fog-bound shore, a signal that might guide or simply mark a place. "Sir," Captain Hale said, stepping forward with measured courtesy. "Can I help?" His voice was low, attentive. It held the flatness of someone learned to de-escalate without dismissing. Maria nodded toward the check-in system. It flagged a mismatch. Company policy on minors. Captain Hale glanced at the boarding pass. He read the name, then Jalen's face. His expression held an immediate, small calculation, an officer's mind assessing risk and fact. He did not pull a badge or demand compliance. He merely asked, "What is the situation?" Marcus told him 3 short sentences: the surprise visit, the custody agreement, the messages. He laid the printed itinerary on the counter like proof that could be read, stamped, and accepted. Around them, a few people drew closer. A woman in a coat with a Thanksgiving-themed scarf checked the time on her watch. A teenager with headphones watched with the curiosity of someone watching a scene in a movie. "Do you have any form of ID that matches the reservation?" Captain Hale asked Jalen gently. Jalen produced his school ID. It had his photo, a nickname printed in looped handwriting, and the chip of a worn lanyard. It was honest as a child's truth. Marcus felt pride and a new flash of helplessness. Maria's tablet beeped. She read another line of system text and made a note. The lights seemed too bright now, as if the scene were being staged under scrutiny. Captain Hale hesitated. He could escalate, press his authority, prod a manager. He could, in that moment, make a decision that bent the rules for one family. He chose instead to listen, to look at faces, and to weigh the balance between rule and fairness. Marcus watched him, feeling both gratitude and a fear that authority could be performative. If a man in captain's stripes could not bend the world, who could? If he could, would it be seen as favoritism or justice? The question hung, and the terminal held its breath. The line at gate C-18 shifted again, a small tide of shoes and luggage wheels. A chime from a departing flight echoed faintly, then faded into the wide hum of the concourse. Marcus felt as if the whole terminal were made of thin glass. One wrong movement, the moment might shatter. Captain Aaron Hale took a half-step closer, his voice calm but edged with concern. "Ms. Collins, could you page a supervisor? This seems like something that needs a second look." Maria Collins hesitated. The tablet screen reflected in her glasses, a pale rectangle of shifting text. "I can page," she said carefully, "but it may take a while. We're understaffed this morning." Jalen looked at the digital clock mounted above the gate door. "Boarding starts in 9 minutes," he whispered. Marcus checked his phone. 10 minutes earlier, everything had felt possible. Now, a gate agent's neutral expression seemed to hold their entire holiday hostage. Elaine took a quiet step toward the captain. "Sir, we appreciate you trying," she said. "We just want him on this flight. His mom's expecting him today." Hale nodded once, thoughtful. "Understood." He leaned toward Maria's desk and tapped a button to request the supervisor. A soft tone announced the page through the terminal's internal system. The request blinked on Maria's display. "Supervisor needed at gate C-18, document verification." Maria steeled her posture. "I'm following the rule," she said, more to the uniformed presence than to Marcus. "The policy is clear." Marcus's reply was quiet. Policies shouldn't erase people. For a moment, Maria's face softened. Then she blinked, returned to her training, and said nothing. A pair of travelers dragging suitcases paused behind them, exchanging murmurs. One whispered, "Poor kid." Another added, "Traveling with a parent should be enough." The words drifted but didn't break the tension. Jalen shifted, pulling his hoodie zipper higher. "Dad," he whispered, "if they don't let me on, is it because—" "Stop right there," Marcus said gently but firmly. "It's because the system is broken. Not you." Captain Hale looked at father and son, then down the hallway where the supervisor might appear. His bag still hung from one shoulder, but his stance had become more formal, a sign Marcus recognized. Men who worked in fields with rules often had a particular stillness when deciding whether to challenge them. A new announcement crackled overhead. "Pre-boarding for Flight 4831 to Columbus will begin shortly." Maria glanced at the clock. "Sir, if the supervisor doesn't arrive in time, I'll have to close boarding." She spoke to Marcus, but her eyes flicked once to the captain, gauging his response. Jalen's breathing grew shallow. Marcus's jaw tightened. "How long do we have?" 7 minutes, Maria said. A ripple of unease passed through the waiting passengers. No one stepped closer, but several watched openly now, the way people do when they see something that feels wrong but aren't sure how to intervene. Hale cleared his throat. "Ms. Collins, may I see the specific policy note?" Maria angled the tablet so he could view it. The screen showed a short text block, "Minor traveling with parent, ID match required. If names differ on reservation, documentation must verify custody or legal guardianship." Under it, the system displayed the red banner flagged. Hale read it twice. The reservation uses a shortened name for the son. Marcus nodded. My ex-wife booked it. She used his nickname. I didn't catch it until this morning. Maria tapped another icon. Unfortunately, the system treats that as a mismatch. The captain's eyebrows lifted by a millimeter, a pilot's version of irritation. A mismatch between a nickname and a full name should not trap a family. It's automated, sir, she replied. If I override it without the right documentation, I could lose my position. That truth landed heavily. Marcus softened. I don't want you punished, he said. Maria bit gently at her lip, the first sign she felt any conflict at all. Minutes passed. The supervisor did not appear. Hale checked the concourse again, then the boarding clock. 3 minutes, he murmured. Jalen's fingers tightened on his backpack strap. I won't make it, will I? Marcus forced his voice steady. We're not done. But inside, he felt the familiar ache of being judged without a chance to explain. He felt the weight of every form he'd ever filled out, every assumption he'd ever fought against. Then a shift. Captain Hale's eyes narrowed with a thought forming behind them. He glanced at Marcus, then at Jalen, then at Maria. Something about his posture changed, subtly, but enough that Maria straightened subconsciously. The captain reached into his blazer pocket. Marcus noticed the gesture. He remembered the card the captain had almost shown earlier, the card he had tucked back away. The card that said something about who he was beyond a flight uniform. Hale didn't draw it yet. He simply touched the pocket as if confirming that it was still there. Let me try one thing, he said quietly. The terminal hum dimmed in Marcus's awareness. Something was shifting, not resolved, not yet redeemed, but turning. What thing? Marcus asked, hope and dread tangled. Captain Hale's gaze moved toward the service corridor where supervisors worked. I know someone, he said. He stepped away from the counter. Everyone watched. Captain Aaron Hale walked with purpose toward the narrow service corridor beside gate C-18, the one marked authorized personnel only. He did not cross into it, he merely positioned himself near the threshold, close enough that anyone emerging would see him first. His shoulders squared, and the small gold wings, pinned to his lapel, caught the overhead lights. Marcus watched, torn between gratitude and the fear that hope could sour into disappointment. He stood close to Jalen, one hand resting lightly on his son's shoulder, steadying them both. Elaine whispered, He's trying, Marcus. That counts. I know, Marcus said. I've seen attempts go sideways. The terminal hummed, low, steady vibration like a distant engine warming up. Sensory notes sharpened, the rolling wheels of a suitcase, the aroma of cinnamon from a nearby kiosk, the faint rustle of a newspaper being folded. Maria Collins kept glancing between her tablet and the captain. Internally, she was weighing risk. She had followed protocol. She knew she had followed protocol. Yet something about the father's quiet dignity and the captain's watchful stance made her want a resolution that didn't feel like punishment. The boarding clock on the screen dropped to 1 minute until pre-boarding. A set of footsteps echoed from the service hall. A man emerged, mid-50s, weathered, wearing the charcoal gray vest of an airport operations supervisor. His name badge read D. Harper. He carried a clipboard and a morning mug that had clearly survived years of drops. When he saw Captain Hale, his tired expression sharpened with recognition. Aaron, what you doing loitering by my hallway? Harper asked. Hale gave a nod, respectful but direct. Dan, I need a moment. Passenger issue at C-18. Harper raised an eyebrow. You flying this route? No, Hale said. But I'm stepping in. There's a father trying to get his son on the Columbus flight. Reservation mismatch triggered a system block. Agent can't override. Harper sighed, the sigh of a man who had seen more complications than the software manuals admitted. Of course, it's a mismatch day. Let me. Back at the counter, Maria straightened instinctively. Harper approached with firm, even steps. Morning, Miss Collins, Harper said. Morning, sir, she replied. The system flagged a minor traveling with parent mismatch. Nickname on the ticket doesn't match the ID. I followed the procedure. I'm sure you did, Harper said. He turned toward Marcus. Sir, I'm Dan Harper. Let me take a quick look at what you have. Marcus handed over the printed itinerary, the boarding passes, and the cloud-stored birth certificate on his phone. Harper inspected each item with a practiced eye. Jalen offered his school ID. "This is me," he added softly. Harper nodded. "I see that." He moved through the documents again, slower this time. His brow furrowed, not in distrust, but in concentration. Hale kept a neutral stance, arms relaxed at his sides. Only Marcus noticed his thumb brushing the edge of that unseen card in his pocket, as if prepared to escalate but choosing not to unless necessary. Passengers nearby were fully committed to the quiet spectacle. A couple pretended to scroll their phones. Another man leaned against a pillar, unmoving, listening. Finally, Harper looked at Maria. "Miss Collins, did you run the exception check?" Maria hesitated. "I didn't think we had grounds." Nickname variants plus corroborating documentation plus present parent, Harper recited from memory. System allows escalation from manual evaluation. Not override, but manual review. Maria's cheeks warmed. She hadn't been trained in that exception in detail. It was buried in a submenu few agents used. "Let's pull it up," Harper said. Together they scrolled through the tablet. 3 screens deep, a small button appeared. Request ID Variance Review. Harper tapped it. The screen turned yellow instead of red. A single line appeared. Supervisor approval required. Harper entered his credentials. The tablet chimed softly, a small decisive sound. Jalen's breath caught. So did Marcus's. But then the system flashed another notice, additional authorization needed. Harper's face tightened. "Are you kidding me?" he muttered under his breath. "What now?" Marcus asked. "It wants a higher clearance," Harper said, frustrated. "New update this month. Someone above me has to confirm." Jalen deflated. Maria swallowed. "Sir, there's only one person on site with that level of clearance." Harper nodded grimly. "Terminal duty chief." Marcus stared. "Where do we find him?" Hale stepped forward. "They're not on the floor. They're in the tower office." Harper added, "And they don't come down often. Not unless there's a serious irregularity." Marcus felt his hopes slipping again. Jalen's shoulders rounded inward. Then Hale quietly said, "Page them. They'll respond." Harper gave him a long look. "They barely respond for us." "I know," Hale replied. "But they'll respond for me." Something shifted in the air, a subtle realignment, like a compass needle finding north. Maria's eyes narrowed with curiosity. "Sir, why would the duty chief respond to you?" Hale didn't answer. He simply reached, again, toward the inside pocket of his blazer. And this time, he drew the card out, just enough for Harper to see. Not Marcus, not Maria, not the watching passengers. Harper's eyes widened. "I'll page them," Harper said immediately. "Right now." He moved faster than anyone expected. Marcus exchanged a look with his sister. What did he show him? Elaine whispered, "Something important." Jalen whispered, "Dad, who is he?" The captain slid the card fully back into his pocket. "All you need to know," he said quietly, "is that someone in this building will take this seriously." The terminal felt suddenly smaller, like the moment before a fuse reaches its spark. A new announcement chimed overhead, softer than the others, almost tentative. "Attention, terminal operations. Duty chief requested at gate C18. Priority level 2. Maria's head snapped toward the ceiling speaker. Harper froze mid-stride. Even passengers who had not been watching now subtly adjusted their posture, sensing the rare tone behind the words. Priority level 2 wasn't used for delays or documentation questions. It was usually reserved for matters that might affect the operation of the terminal itself. Marcus felt the moment press inward. Jalen clutched his backpack straps until his knuckles whitened. The concourse, once filled with casual movement, now held pockets of stillness, tiny circles of curiosity. The soft smell of brewed coffee drifted in from behind them, grounding the tension in something ordinary. "What does priority 2 mean?" Jalen whispered. "It means this is bigger than paperwork now," Elaine murmured. Maria swallowed hard. "They don't come down here for families," she said under her breath. "Something else is happening." Harper rejoined them, breath slightly elevated. "Duty chief is on the way," he said. They acknowledged immediately. He shot a look at Hale, not of suspicion, but of reluctant respect. Captain Hale didn't react. He simply adjusted the strap of his leather bag and positioned himself half a step behind Marcus, like someone protecting a fragile balance without drawing attention to it. Marcus studied him now, the calm stance, the measured breaths, the subtle readiness. This was no ordinary pilot. His authority came from something else, something deeper, something with roots beneath the visible layers of his uniform. A soft tone chimed from the concourse doors. A woman stepped through, early 50s, composed, wearing a dark navy blazer that held no airline logo but carried a small silver pin shaped like a stylized wing. Unlike Hale's gold, hers was understated and somehow more commanding. Her badge read, Chief Donna Kerr, Terminal Operations. A hush followed her like a shadow. She approached the counter with a deliberate stride, stopping a few feet from the group. "Report," she said. Harper cleared his throat. "Mine are traveling with parent. Reservation nickname doesn't match given ID. Documents support the match. System lock required higher clearance." Kerr nodded once. Her eyes turned to Maria. "Agent Collins?" Maria stood straighter. "I followed policy, ma'am." "I'm sure you did," Kerr said. Then she turned her attention to Marcus and Jalen. "Sir, I understand your son is traveling to see his mother?" Marcus answered calmly. "Yes, ma'am. He's 16. We've done this route twice this year. My ex-wife booked this flight. She used his nickname. I didn't realize it would trigger this." Kerr examined the documents Harper held out. She scanned the boarding passes, the itinerary, the birth certificate on Marcus's phone. Her eyes moved with precision, not mechanical, but methodical. Finally, she looked at Jalen. "Young man, this is your school ID?" "Yes, ma'am." She studied it carefully. "Photo matches. Age consistent." She handed it back. There was a long pause, a suspension of time. "Under normal circumstances," Kerr said, "I would process the variance review from my station upstairs. But your case reached me through a channel rarely used for family travel." Her gaze shifted, not toward Marcus, but toward Hale. "Captain Hale," she said. "You requested me, personally?" A murmur rippled through the nearby passengers. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Jalen leaned closer. Hale stepped forward with quiet respect. "I did." Kerr folded her arms. "You're not flying today." "No." "You're not acting in your regular capacity." "No." "Then in what capacity?" she asked. "Are you involving yourself in a gate-level documentation review?" A silence followed, deep, careful. Hale reached into his blazer pocket again, and this time he withdrew the card fully. It was a thick, matte black identification card with a silver seal pressed into the surface, a seal Marcus did not immediately recognize. But Kerr recognized it instantly. So did Harper. Even Maria inhaled sharply. Hale held it steady in his palm. "Internal compliance oversight," Kerr said. "Not a question, a recognition." Passengers nearby stiffened subtly, sensing the shift. Elaine whispered, "Internal what?" Marcus didn't blink. He felt a strange clarity rising. Something pivotal was unfolding. Hale spoke softly, but the words carried, "I'm here on assignment. Quiet audit. Observational only. But when a policy becomes harmful instead of protective, it's my responsibility to intervene." He turned to Marcus. "I wasn't sure whether to step in. Then I saw the mismatch and the immediate denial of variance review, and the stakes for your son." Kerr exhaled, slow, resigned. "Understood." She took Maria's tablet, entered her own credentials, then a second authentication. The tablet chirped, a crisp green confirmation. "Variance approved," Kerr said. "This young man is cleared to board." Jalen blinked fast, tears threatening. Marcus steadied him with a hand to his back. Maria felt the weight lift from her shoulders. Harper stepped aside, rubbing his tired eyes. Kerr handed the tablet back. "Board them first, Ms. Collins." Maria nodded, humbled. But Kerr wasn't done. She turned to Hale. "We will speak after this is resolved." Hale accepted that calmly. And Marcus realized this wasn't the twist. This was only the beginning of it. Jalen's boarding pass trembled in his hand. The green confirmation glow on the tablet felt like a sunrise after a long night, warm, fragile, and unbelievable. But before Marcus could exhale fully, Chief Donna Kerr lifted a hand, halting any forward motion. "Not yet," she said. Maria froze mid-tap. Harper straightened. Even the nearby passengers, who begun to relax, tightened again. Kerr stepped closer to Captain Hale, lowering her voice only a fraction. You triggered a Priority 2 page for a documentation dispute. Your authority allows it, but you understand that the duty office will ask why you chose to escalate this case. I understand, Hale replied. And you understand, Kerr added, that they will review your internal logs? Hale nodded once, calm as a man who had already made peace with consequences. Marcus felt the air shift again. Excuse me, he said gently, but if Jalen is cleared, may we board now? Kerr turned toward him. Her expression softened, but her posture stayed guarded. You will. But some procedures move in chains. And when a link is pulled, the next one follows. It was the most cryptic thing she had said yet. Elaine, sensing the tension coil anew, stepped closer to Marcus. Something's off, she whispered. Maria clicked to reopen boarding, but when she swiped her badge, the tablet vibrated with a brief, sharp tone. Access temporarily locked, admin hold. Maria's breath hitched. I didn't do that. Harper frowned. Neither did I. Kerr's jaw tightened. They're already watching. Marcus felt his heart sink. Is this because of us? No, Kerr said firmly. This is because of the system that trapped you. Hale stepped between Kerr and the counter. Let them board. That's the correct call. Kerr hesitated, not because she disagreed, but because she recognized something Marcus did not yet understand. A larger mechanism had started moving, and Hale was standing directly in its path. Then footsteps. Heavy, purposeful. From the same service corridor where Harper had emerged earlier, another figure appeared. A woman in a deep black jacket with the same silver seal as Hale's card, but hers was on a lanyard, visible and unhidden. Her badge read L. Radford, Senior Compliance Director. Even Kerr stiffened. Radford approached with a calm that felt colder than the terminal's air conditioning. Captain Hale, she said. I see you've shown your card. Hale didn't flinch. The situation required intervention. Radford's eyes shifted to Marcus and Jalen, evaluating without emotion. A simple nickname mismatch. Hardly grounds for an audit-triggered escalation. It became grounds, Hale responded evenly. When the variance review was denied without justification, Maria whispered, It wasn't denied. I just didn't know it existed. Radford heard her. Ignorance of protocol is a training issue, not a systems flaw. Harper bristled. My agents are overworked and understaffed. That's a systemic flaw. Kerr stepped forward, inserting herself between Radford and the others. Director Radford, the family has documentation. I approve the variance. They're cleared. Radford's eyes narrowed a fraction. Your approval is noted. But that does not address the misuse of an oversight credential. She turned to Hale. You are not here to interfere in minor travel disputes. You are here to monitor whether internal guidelines are being followed. Hale held his ground. They weren't being followed. Debatable, Radford countered. And now a chain of unnecessary alerts has been generated. Marcus stepped forward. Ma'am, we're just trying to get my son to see his mother. If this is about us, I'll explain anything you need. Radford looked at him, not unkindly, but with clinical distance. Sir, this is no longer about you. Your case is valid. Your son will fly. Jalen exhaled shakily. But, Radford continued, turning back to Hale, the question now is whether Captain Hale violated the scope of his assignment. Kerr's expression hardened. Director, he didn't violate anything. He prevented a failure. Or created a larger one, Radford said. The tension thickened, compressing the air until even the passing passengers felt compelled to give the group a wider berth. Hale's voice remained steady. If your concern is the alert chain, I accept responsibility. But don't freeze this family's travel to make a point. Radford studied him for several seconds, long enough that Marcus could hear the click of a distant roller bag. Then she said quietly, If you weren't who you are, Captain Hale, I would suspend your credentials today. That sentence landed like a dropped wrench, heavy, echoing, unmistakably consequential. Elaine squeezed Marcus's arm. Marcus, who is this man? Radford lifted the black card from Hale's pocket, verifying the embossed seal with her thumb. Internal compliance oversight, she said aloud, for all to hear. The highest internal auditing branch this airport employs. Those stripes on his sleeve aren't the reason he could call me down here. She returned the card to him. There the cover. A ripple moved through the passengers. Shock, curiosity, disbelief. Marcus stared at Hale, realization hitting. This wasn't a helpful pilot. This was someone with hidden authority, someone who walked the airport unseen but saw everything. Radford gestured to Maria. Release the boarding lock. Maria tapped her screen. The tablet flashed green. Board them, Radford said. Now. But as Marcus prepared to step forward with Jalen, relief rising like warm water, Radford's final words stopped in cold. Captain Hale stays. He and I have unfinished business. The twist had only begun to unfold. Marcus froze mid-step. Jalen nearly bumped into him, his boarding pass still warm from his fingers. The air around gate C-18 held a strange mixture of relief and tightening dread, like a door opening just as another slammed shut. Dad, we can board, right? Jalen whispered. Marcus nodded slowly. We can. But Captain Hale wasn't moving. He stood as if rooted to the polished floor, hands calm at his sides, face unreadable. Director Radford's gaze remained fixed on him, a gaze honed by years of scrutinizing every procedural bruise inside the airport's operations. Chief Kerr caught the tension. Director Radford, she said carefully, this family should not be held here any longer. Their variance is approved. Radford gestured toward the jet bridge. They're free to go. Then she looked at Hale. You're not. Marcus felt torn. Gratitude for the man who stepped in. Fear of leaving him behind. Confusion about what exactly the card and the stripes meant when used together. He stepped closer to Hale. Sir, thank you. We couldn't have done this without you. But if you need anything. Hale offered a small, reassuring smile. Get your son home, Marcus. That's all that matters right now. But something in his eyes, an almost imperceptible shadow, said he expected consequences. Harper shifted uneasily. Director, be reasonable. The captain stepped in because I was locked out of variance approval. My fault, not his. Radford didn't acknowledge the offer. This is not punitive, Mr. Harper. Internal compliance matters must be clarified immediately. Maria swallowed. But he helped us. And he may have exceeded his scope, Radford replied. That's what we need to review. Jalen tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Dad, we can't just leave him. Marcus put a steady hand on Jalen's back. He's trained for this. And he chose it. Hale gave a small nod. Your father's right. Kerr stepped forward, tension visible in her jaw. Director, if your concern is the alert chain, we can handle this upstairs, quietly, after the flight departs. There's no need for a public interrogation. Radford didn't blink. I agree. Which is why we're going upstairs. She motioned toward the service corridor. Hale sighed, not out of fear, but acceptance. Very well. But when he began to follow her, Kerr stepped in front of him. No, she said. I'll accompany you both. Radford looked mildly annoyed. Chief Kerr, this doesn't require. It does, Kerr interrupted. Because I approved the variance. And because if there's an inquiry about escalation protocol, I will not allow Captain Hale to stand alone in it. The concourse went quiet. Even the nearby passengers sensed the weight of the moment. Hale studied Kerr for a heartbeat, gratitude flickering behind his composed expression. Thank you, he said softly. Radford exhaled. Fine. Let's proceed. She turned to Maria. Open boarding. Maria tapped the tablet again. This time the boarding door clicked open with a soft electronic lock release. Passengers began lining up, but Marcus and Jalen stayed where they were. Sir, Hale said gently, you need to go. Marcus shook his head. Not until I know you're okay. Hale chuckled, a rare warm sound. I'm not being arrested. I'm being questioned. I'll walk out of there just fine. Jalen's eyes filled. You helped us. We don't want you to get in trouble because of us. Hale crouched slightly, so he was at eye level with the boy. Jalen, listen to me. People like me step into situations like this because it's our job to make sure people like you don't get stuck in them. You did nothing wrong. Your dad did nothing wrong. And what I did, I'm prepared to answer for. That's part of the responsibility. Jalen nodded, though his throat tightened. Hale straightened and looked at Marcus one last time. Get him on that plane. Make sure his mother gets her surprise. Marcus gripped Hale's hand firmly. We'll be waiting to hear how it turns out. Hale nodded once, a quiet promise, then turned toward the service corridor. Radford and Kerr flanked him like two opposing chapters of the same rulebook, one rigid, one human. As they disappeared through the restricted door, the corridors swallowed the echo of their footsteps. The gate area felt different without him, emptier, slightly unbalanced, as if a protective pillar had been quietly removed. Maria's voice finally broke the silence. Boarding Group A may now proceed. Elaine nudged Marcus. Come on, let's get Jay on that plane. But Marcus took one more look at the service corridor, the small doorway behind which a man had traded his anonymity to defend their dignity. He whispered, "Please be okay." Then he and Jalen stepped forward at last, toward the jet bridge. And behind them, the door that had swallowed Hale clicked shut. The jet bridge smelled faintly of metal and recycled air, the familiar scent of departure. Jalen walked a step ahead, still glancing back as if Captain Hale might suddenly reappear from the concourse and give a reassuring nod. Marcus carried his son's backpack for him, a small silent gesture to steady them both. As they entered the aircraft, a flight attendant greeted them with a practiced smile. "Welcome aboard." Jalen tried to smile back, but it wavered. Marcus squeezed his shoulder. "Go find our seats, bud. I'll talk to the attendant." Jalen nodded and walked down the aisle, scanning seat numbers with trembling fingers. Marcus leaned toward the attendant. "Ma'am, is Captain Hale part of your crew today?" She shook her head. "No, sir. He wasn't assigned to this flight." Marcus absorbed that, a reminder that Hale had appeared not by assignment, but by choice. The attendant's voice softened. "Everything okay?" Marcus answered honestly. "Someone helped us get on. I'm hoping he'll be treated fairly." She nodded, as if she had seen many quiet stories pass through jet bridges. "I hope so, too." He found Jalen seated at 17A, shoulders hunched, hands clasped. The boy stared at the window, but wasn't really looking at anything. Marcus sat beside him. "You're safe," Marcus whispered. Jalen nodded. "I know." But safety didn't erase worry. Outside, ground crew moved with deliberate efficiency. Fuel lines detached. A catering truck rolled away. The plane's wing caught the afternoon sun as it broke through a window of cloud. The door closed with a soft, definitive hiss. Jalen's voice was barely audible. "Dad, what's going to happen to him?" Marcus shook his head. "Policies have teeth, but people do too. Good people." Jalen shifted. Why didn't he just say he was, whatever he is? Show that card right away. Marcus thought for a moment. Because authority isn't meant to be the first tool you reach for. Only the last. Jalen let that settle. The plane backed away from the gate. Engines hummed, a low vibration rising through the floor. As they taxied, Marcus watched the concourse passing by, each window a reflection of what they'd left behind. He imagined Hale walking through the service hall, flanked by two powerful women, one rigid by duty, one softened by experience. He imagined the muted room where questions would be asked. He imagined Hale answering every one of them without regret. Then the plane lifted. Clouds opened beneath them like soft blankets. Jalen leaned forward, a faint smile returning. "Mom's gonna flip when she sees me." "That's the plan," Marcus said. He tried to focus on that joy, but his thoughts kept looping back to Hale, his presence, his intervention, and the unspoken cost. Halfway through the flight, a soft chime came from the cabin speakers. "If any passengers require assistance or have concerns, please let your crew know." It was a standard announcement. Still, it pulled Marcus's attention. He checked his phone again, even though he knew there'd be no signal. Jalen noticed. "You keep checking," he said quietly. Marcus nodded. "I want to know he's okay." Jalen looked down. "He didn't have to help us." "No," Marcus said. "But he did." And that truth pressed deeper than any policy. As the plane began its descent toward Columbus, excitement returned to Jalen's voice. "What do I say to Mom first? Should I knock? Or just walk in?" Marcus smiled. "You'll know when you see her." A soft ding signaled final approach. The clouds parted to reveal the familiar patchwork of Ohio neighborhoods, small squares of rooftops and streets crossing like lines on a folded map. But as they descended, something unexpected happened. A notification blinked onto Marcus's screen the moment the plane reconnected to cellular signal. A text from an unknown number. He frowned and opened it. Family bell, Captain Hale is safe. Meeting resolved. No disciplinary action. Deeker. Marcus exhaled deeply, eyes burning with gratitude. Jalen leaned in. Is it? He's okay, Marcus said, voice thick. Jalen smiled, relief softening his whole face. But beneath the message was a second line. He requests that you wait in the terminal after landing. He has something for your son. Jalen blinked. For me? Marcus looked out the window as the wheels touched down smoothly on the runway. Whatever this was, whatever Hale had gone through, it wasn't finished. Not yet. The landing gear thumped gently onto the Columbus runway. The cabin trembled, then settled into a smooth roll. Passengers around them stirred, some stretching, some reaching for phones, some releasing tension only now that the journey was nearly done. But Marcus wasn't ready to stand. Not yet. He stared at the message on his phone, the brief text from Chief Donna Kerr, reading it a second time without meaning to, then a third. He kept expecting it to vanish or reveal itself as an automated gate reminder or stray spam message. But the words stayed. Family bell, Captain Hale is safe. Meeting resolved. No disciplinary action. D. Kerr here requests that you wait in the terminal after landing. He has something for your son. Jalen leaned over, eyes round. Dad, why would he want to meet us here? Marcus shook his head. I don't know. But deep down, a thought had begun to form, fragile, flickering, and not yet ready to become belief. The plane slowed, turned, and began its long taxi toward the gate. The overhead bins creaked as passengers reached up prematurely. The cabin crew prepared the cabin with measured smiles. Jalen tapped his foot. Think he's giving us a warning or something. Like a paperwork we need next time? Or a letter? No, Marcus replied after a moment. That man doesn't seem like someone who calls you across a terminal just to hand you forms. Jalen nodded, chewing his lip. So, what then? If we're lucky, Marcus said softly, maybe it's closure. The captain's voice came over the intercom, polite and routine. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Columbus. Local time is 2:41 p.m. Please remain seated until we reach the gate. Marcus barely heard it. Jalen looked out the window, watching as the airport grew larger through the glass. The sky had brightened since Dallas. Light poured over the tarmac in wide sheets. A ground crewman moved with bright orange batons, guiding a plane into place. Everything looked ordinary. But for Marcus and Jalen, nothing about today felt ordinary. Jalen pulled his hoodie tighter. Do you think he got in trouble? No, Marcus said firmly, not because he knew, but because hope needed a voice. Kerr said he's safe. Jalen nodded, though worry still clung to him like static. The plane docked with the jet bridge. The seatbelt light clicked off. People rose in one sweeping motion. Let the front rows go first, Marcus said. We're not in a hurry. Jalen nodded and remained seated. Passengers squeezed past, whispering small pleasantries, safe travels. You going home for the holiday? Best time of year to fly. Not always, Marcus murmured. A woman with a scarf patterned in autumn leaves paused beside them. She'd been across the aisle 2 rows up. She placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. I saw what happened at the gate in Dallas, she whispered. I'm glad you two made the flight. Marcus blinked at her, startled by the kindness. Thank you, ma'am. She smiled at Jalen. Young man, keep your chin up. The world needs more grace than it gives. Jalen managed a small smile. Yes, ma'am. She continued down the aisle. Marcus and Jalen gathered their bags. Jalen exhaled. Okay, let's go. They stepped off the plane into the bright, echoing corridor of Columbus International Airport. The scent was different here. Less coffee, more open air, more Midwestern plainness. The carpet was soft underfoot, the overhead lights warmer. As they walked toward the main concourse, Jalen looked up. Dad, is Mom near baggage claim? Yes, Marcus said. She left school early to get us. She said she's parked in a cell phone lot until we text. Jalen grinned, excitement finally overtaking anxiety. She's going to scream when she sees me. She might cry, Marcus said. Or both. Jalen chuckled as they walked. Then another thought settled on him. But we're supposed to meet Captain Hale first, right? Yes. Marcus scanned the crowd. Chief Kerr said he'd find us. Look for a pilot's uniform or a Navy blazer. Jalen looked around, eyes sharp, expecting to see the familiar figure with captain stripes. But no one stood waiting yet. Just ordinary travelers, airport employees, rolling bags, kids holding stuffed animals, business travelers with laptops, and families reuniting. They moved toward an empty seating area near the windows overlooking the runway. Jalen sat. Marcus stood. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. Jalen checked his phone. Maybe he couldn't come. Maybe the meeting ran long. Marcus answered without certainty. He said he'd meet us. And he doesn't seem like someone who breaks his word. Jalen nodded. 20 minutes had drifted by when Marcus noticed something. Not a person approaching, but a reflection. In the glass. A tall figure. Steady stride. Uniform jacket slung over one arm. Captain Aaron Hale had arrived. Jalen jumped to his feet before Marcus could say a word. Hale smiled when he saw them. A tired smile, but real. Thought I might have missed you. Marcus shook his hand firmly. We waited. Good, Hale said. I would have been disappointed if you hadn't. Jalen's voice cracked with relief. Are you okay? Hale nodded. Better than okay. He set his bag down. The sleeve of his blazer brushed the seat beside him, and for the first time Marcus noticed something he hadn't before. The faint imprint of a logo stitched on the inside lining. Not airline, not corporate. Government grade. Something internal, something seldom seen. Director Radford really tore into you, didn't she? Marcus guessed. Hale chuckled. I've known her a long time. She's strict, but fair. It wasn't punishment, it was review. And I had answers. Jalen asked, Did you get in trouble? Hale's smile deepened. Not in the slightest. Turns out, when you follow your mandate, even aggressively, leadership tends to accept that. Marcus exhaled. Jalen blinked. So, what did you want to give me? Hale reached into the side pocket of his bag. Marcus held his breath, expecting documents. Or a letter. Or some kind of advisory note used to smooth future travel. But that wasn't what Hale pulled out. He withdrew a small envelope, thick, cream-colored, neatly folded. No markings on the outside. He handed it to Jalen. This, Hale said, is for you. Jalen hesitated. For me? Why? Because, Hale said softly, you handled today with more grace than many adults I've seen. Jalen's cheeks warmed. I didn't do anything. That's not true, Hale replied. You did something remarkable. You held on to dignity when it would have been easier to fall into anger or fear. Jalen opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a laminated card. Not an ID. Not a badge. A traveler's name variance authorization, rare, government-issued, designed for minors who moved between households, whose documentation often came tangled in mismatched naming conventions. It bore a small embedded chip, a QR code, and Jalen's full name, and beneath it, his nickname listed as an acceptable variant. Jalen's eyes widened. But how did you? Hale lifted one hand gently. Let's call it a tool I'm allowed to activate under specific circumstances. Marcus swallowed. Is this permanent? Valid until his 18th birthday, Hale said. After that, he carries his own ID. But until then, this will prevent another day like today with any airline on any domestic route. Jalen's breath caught. This stops the system from treating me like I'm not with my dad? Yes, Hale said simply. Jalen looked at it, blinking fast. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Hale nodded. You earned it. Marcus felt a heat in his chest he hadn't expected, a swelling gratitude that pressed against his ribs. He took a slow step forward. I don't know how to repay this, he said. You already have, Hale answered. You showed me exactly why these systems have to stay accountable. That's my job. But today, you reminded me who we're protecting when we enforce rules. Jalen looked up at him. Are you like a secret federal agent? Hale laughed. Nothing that glamorous. Just a man who keeps an eye on the places where small mistakes create big harm. Marcus asked, So, what happens next? For you? I go back to work, Hale said steady. Finish my audit. Make a few recommendations. And write a report that says a certain gate agent deserves better training and less blame. Maria? Jalen asked. She meant well, Hale said. She was following what she believed was the rule. Training failed her. Not integrity. Marcus nodded. Will she get in trouble? No, Hale said. She'll get retrained. Maybe even promoted. She handled the pressure with professionalism. Jalen looked relieved. Hale lifted his bag. I need to get back to Dallas. But before I go, he paused, and from the interior pocket of his blazer, he withdrew the same matte black oversight card. He held it between two fingers, not flashy, not boastful. There's one more thing you should know, he said quietly. Marcus and Jalen leaned in. My father, Hale said, was a gate agent. A good one. But he once lost his job because of a system error that wasn't his fault. No oversight existed back then. No one fought for him. Marcus stilled. He always told me, Hale continued, if you ever work in these walls, remember that the rules aren't the people. Protect the people. Jalen whispered, that's what you did today. Hale nodded softly. I try to live up to him. He slipped the card away again and extended his hand to Jalen. Take care of that authorization, he said. And more importantly, take care of the dignity you showed today. It'll carry you farther than any flight. Jalen shook his hand firmly. Yes, sir. Hale turned to Marcus next. You're a good father. Marcus's throat tightened. I try. You succeed, Hale said, then added with a small smile. I see a lot in this job. I would know. He put on his blazer, straightened the cuffs, the four captain stripes gleaming with quiet authority, and picked up his bag. I have a flight to catch, he said. But if either of you ever have trouble again, use the number on the back of the authorization card. Someone will answer. Jalen checked. There it was, a small, embossed hotline number. Not commercial. Internal. Goodbye, Jalen, Hale said warmly. Enjoy your holiday. Goodbye, sir. Goodbye, Marcus. Safe travels, Captain. Hale nodded once, a gesture full of meaning, then walked away. He didn't look back. Marcus and Jalen sat together in silence, absorbing the moment. The echo of Hale's footsteps faded down the concourse. Finally, Jalen let out a breath. Dad, that man is something else. Yes, Marcus said softly. He is. Jalen clutched the authorization card. His fingers trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of understanding. Mom, Jalen said suddenly. We have to go see Mom. Marcus laughed. Yes, son, we do. They walked together toward the escalators, toward the waiting arms of a mother who had no idea her son had crossed more than miles today. He had crossed a threshold of respect, of recognition, of protection. And Marcus, walking beside him, knew one truth deeper than ever. Sometimes the smallest documents carry the greatest dignity. Sometimes the quietest voices become the strongest shields. And sometimes the right person appears at the exact moment justice needs a witness. The Bell family stepped into the bright Columbus afternoon, and far behind them, somewhere in a quiet corner of the Dallas terminal, a man in a navy blazer wrote in a secure report. Case closed successfully. Family protected. Systemic correction recommended. 3 months later, Columbus, Ohio. Late February. Snow drifted across the parking lot of the community center, soft as sifted flour. The afternoon sun glowed faintly behind pale clouds, casting a gentle silver across the sidewalks. Inside, the warmth of a weekend youth workshop filled the hall. Chatter, scrape of chairs, and the bright scratch of markers on poster paper. Jalen Bell, now 17, finished speaking to a small group of middle school students about confidence, travel readiness, and staying calm in stressful places. It wasn't a formal program, just a volunteer session his mother's district hosted for kids who had never flown before. He held up his backpack. If you ever fly, he told them, make a little folder for yourself. Your ID, your ticket, any notes from your parents. It helps. But also, his voice quieted. Remember that you deserve respect at every step. Even when the system doesn't know your name. A 7th grader raised her hand. What if someone treats you like they don't believe you? Jalen smiled, steady and sure. Then you stand tall. Someone will stand with you. The students nodded. The session ended with snacks and laughter. When the kids filed out, Jalen slipped his backpack on and walked toward the lobby, and paused when he saw his father waiting. Marcus leaned against a brochure stand, hands in his coat pockets, eyes warm and proud. His peacoat's elbows had been restitched, neatly this time. You did good, son. Jalen shrugged, smiling. I like helping them. Feels like passing something on. Marcus nodded. You're doing more than that. They stepped outside together into the chilly air. Snowflakes tapped softly on their jackets. A weak breeze carried the scent of distant wood smoke, a neighborhood fireplace somewhere nearby. As they reached the truck, Marcus pulled a small envelope from his pocket. This came for you, he said. Addressed to us both. Jalen blinked. From who? Marcus handed it over. The return address read, Dallas, Fort Worth International, Terminal Oversight Office, no name. Just the seal, a faint, silver wing-shaped imprint. Jalen's breath caught. Is it from him? Open it. Inside was a single sheet of fixed stationery, folded neatly. Jalen unfolded it and read aloud. Family Bell audits are complete. Variance policies have been updated. Training revisions implemented. Internal alerts reduced. And one particular protocol now includes a new example, nickname variance, Seabell case. Below it, a handwritten line, unmistakably Captain Hales. Remember, dignity stays documented when voices stay brave. Marcus breathed out slowly. He changed the policy. Jalen folded the letter carefully. We helped. You did, Marcus corrected gently. You stood there with your head high. That mattered. Jalen tucked the letter into his backpack beside the laminated authorization card, the one he still carried, though he hadn't needed to use it since. The silence settled, comfortable, meaningful. Snowflakes drifted around them, catching the light like tiny sparks. After a long moment, Jalen asked, Do you think we'll ever see him again? Marcus smiled, quiet and sure. A man like that? He shows up exactly when he's needed. Maybe one day, when someone else needs him, or maybe when we do. Jalen zipped up his coat. I hope we get to thank him again. You did, Marcus said. With how you're living. Jalen looked out over the snowy parking lot, the distant hum of cars, the open invitation hush of a winter afternoon. Dad. Yeah. I think I want to work in airports one day. Not flying, maybe the other stuff. The kind he does. Helping where it matters. Marcus's heart tightened in the best way. Then you'll be good at it. Jalen nodded, eyes thoughtful. They climbed into the truck. The heater sputtered to life, pushing warm air toward the windshield. Before Marcus put the truck in drive, Jalen reached into his pocket and ran a thumb over the smooth edge of the authorization card, the one Hale had given him 3 months earlier, the one that had resurfaced in this new world where systems were changing. Just once more, as if in quiet thanks. A motif returned, small and steady, the soft glint of the laminated card catching light, just as Hale's captain stripes had caught the terminal lights months before. Marcus started the engine. Ready to head home? Jalen smiled. Yeah, ready. As they pulled away, the snow thickened into a gentle curtain. The community center shrank behind them, warm light flickering through frosted windows. And somewhere hundreds of miles away, inside Dallas Fort Worth International, a man in a navy blazer reviewed updated training modules, signed off on a new checklist, and slipped a familiar matte black card back into his pocket. The work continued. The world nudged forward. And the story of a father, a son, and a man who chose justice over convenience settled quietly into the system, leaving steady change in its wake. Andy, thanks for watching.